When most people think Macintosh PowerBook, they're probably thinking about something like this. With this particular design. It was very ubiquitous for several years. And it's not like I don't have several of them. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video, but this is actually a 145B that I've never showed on this channel before. Unfortunately, it's non-functional. I'm probably going to have to take the display apart and recap it, because it looks like there's a problem there. All I get is a white band on the bottom of the screen, and I tried reseating the display ribbon cable, and it didn't help. So, but this is a pretty typical PowerBook design. I used this design for the longest time. Not the original PowerBook 100, which is another machine I've got that I need to fix. But starting with the 140 and the 170, through to the 145, the 145B. The 150, although the 150 had a slightly different display. And then on the higher end of the scale, there's the 160, the 165, and the 180. Again, there was a 165C and a 180C. They had a slightly different top panel, but the rest of the machine was basically the same. So Apple used this design for several years. This one even has the modem. That was an option. But all good things must come to an end, and may I present to you a radical rethink of the Macintosh PowerBook 100. Now, if you've watched my Hamfest 2023 video, you will know that I picked up a very sad-looking Macintosh PowerBook 5300 of some description. I think it was a 5300 CS, if I remember what I was told correctly about it. That's why I've got this. Because my plan to repair that 5300 was to find a cheap machine that shared the same case. This fits the bill. But it is not a PowerBook 5300. It is a PowerBook 190. And in particular, this one, I want to be very gentle with the hinges here. Wow, that's hard to read. Is a PowerBook 190 CS. I do not remember if this was introduced alongside or shortly after the Macintosh PowerBook 5300. But it shares the same case, and it is basically the replacement for the PowerBook 150, although again, the sales timelines overlap a little bit among those two machines. But this was the low-end Macintosh PowerBook, marketed towards the broke college student who needed a no-frills laptop. If you're familiar with the old PowerBook 100s, this looks absolutely nothing like a Macintosh PowerBook, as you just saw. It's a completely different design. More in line with the modern Apple times. It actually kind of looks more like a PowerBook 500, like a 520C or a 540C, or 520 or 540, or even the 550, than anything else. There's an infrared on the back. Kind of an interesting little thing that was not found on previous Macintoshes. The 190 CS, or sorry, the 190 was sold in two different models, the 190 and the 190 CS. You'll note that there was no 190C. These were only sold with passive matrix displays. I believe that they were dual scan, but they may not have been. For the sake of argument, I'm going to ignore the various PowerBook 100s because, or sorry, the various PowerBook 500s, because when most people think Macintosh PowerBook, they don't think of a PowerBook 500 series machine, as mentioned earlier in the video. So, we'll take a look at the differences and compare them simply to the Macintosh PowerBook. You saw the 145B earlier, but any one of those Macintosh PowerBooks that share that same basic design. The battery's here. It's got this sticker on it that I should probably remove, but it's there. This is actually where I bought it from, off of eBay. PCMCIA card slots, which the PowerBook 100 series did not have. They're electronic eject. In fact, I don't know if the PowerBook 500 series even had PCMCIA cards. I'll have to look at my 520C. There's a DC jack right there, of which more later. Aforementioned infrared port there for IRDA communications. This door here, which is probably a frequent accident victim, like it was on the PowerBook 100s. Although, fortunately, with this one, the power button is not behind the door. This, I believe, is a configurable option. The external video port that's right here. Underneath that is what looks like maybe a power switch. Certainly what it looks like to me if you look at this indication here. So it does have a power switch under the door, but I believe it's also got one on the keyboard. There's a blank here, this for a line input that this doesn't have. There's a line output, or speaker output. HDI 30 SCSI. That is a combination, I think this is GeoPort enabled. Combination printer and modem port, Apple serial, and a single ADB port. Coming to this side, here's something else that is new for the PowerBook 190 that the 100 series didn't have previously. This is actually a hot swappable, or at least a swappable. I don't know if it's hot swappable. Bay here. Oops, well, that wasn't really what I had in mind for that. But yeah, that's a two-hand job. The older design was much better. You could just twist it, but this one you have to push it down, put it down, and then you have to push this in and then push that up. You can't just push it up. Here's a second battery. So this is like the PowerBook 500 series in that it's got two batteries, I believe, anyway. Okay, let me correct myself. There is no battery on this side of the machine. It's just this one battery, and this one looks like it's not in very good condition. Looks like it's probably leaked at some point. And they got this tape over top of it, I guess to prevent it from actually working. Not 100% sure. You'll notice this is a nickel metal hydride battery. The PowerBook 5300, among its many issues, not the least of which were the case plastics, were battery fires initially because they used, or were one of the first PowerBooks to use, Sony lithium batteries, lithium-ion batteries, and they would explode into flames. I don't know if any, I don't remember if it was the case that they all just exploded at the factory, or if some actually went out, although the fact that there was a recall seems to suggest that some of them actually went out to customers. The PowerBook 190 wasn't plagued by that, but it still got a bad reputation, simply by looking like the 5300, which was plagued with all those problems. The PowerBook 190 is also notable for being the last Macintosh to ever ship with a Motorola processor in it. Yes, that's right, where the 5300 used the then new PowerPC, I think it was a 603E in that case, this uses a Motorola 68LCO40. Apple says that it's clocked at 66 MHz, but that's not actually true. It's a 33 MHz CPU. As far as other specs go, for memory, these things shipped either with 4 MB or 8 MB of onboard memory. Now, this is a 190 CS, so this shipped with 8 from the factory. The 190 could have been configured for 8, but the base configuration was 4 MB. You could expand this with up to 32 MB of additional memory for a total, in the case of this machine, of 40 MB. I don't remember how much this one's got in it, but I do know that it has been expanded. For a hard drive, like the PowerBook 5300, and also the PowerBook 150, which was unique in the PowerBook 100s up until now, or up until the time of the introduction, this uses an IDE hard drive. Somewhat surprisingly, Apple chose to fit this with a 500 MB hard drive. I say somewhat surprisingly because 1 GB was the gold standard in the year 1995. Oh sure, you could get drives that were smaller and larger. It was certainly possible. And you might think that, oh, well, this is a budget machine, so 500 MB being the cheap end makes sense. The PowerBook 5300 wasn't much bigger. It could ship with a 500 or a 750. Kind of a little behind the times in that regard, and the IDE hard drives were always seen as being slower than the previous SCSI ones. But these days, it's a lot nicer to have an IDE hard drive than a SCSI one, because the SCSI ones are just almost impossible to find. Remember when I said we'll come back to the power supply? Well, this is the power supply for this machine. Well, actually, it's the power supply for my 5300, but it's the same power supply. Take a look at that. Does that not look accident-prone to you? That's another frequent victim on these PowerBook 190/5300 systems. And really, it just adds to the list. The bad plastics, the battery fires in the case of the 5300, the lower performance specifications, the smaller hard drives, etc., really gave these machines a black mark. And these systems didn't really deserve a black mark, because once you got past all the issues, they were reasonably competent machines. It's just that you could go into the PC world and spend the same kind of money and get a much better computer for what you could in the Macintosh world. They always were significantly more expensive. Then again, a couple $1,000s for a laptop was pretty much standard fare back then, because laptops were not really seen as something that you could just walk into a store and buy, even though I believe by 1995 you could do such a thing. You know, laptop displays in Best Buy, I believe, were a thing at that point. But traditionally, the laptop was just viewed as a system that would be purchased by businesses en masse for their employees to use on the go. They weren't something that the average user would buy for home use. And so they really weren't designed for that kind of thing. In fact, they really weren't designed to be a primary use computer at all. So that's why you ended up with things like weird 640 by 400 standard resolutions on the traditional Macintosh PowerBook 100 series machine. This, being a 190 CS, has got the passive matrix, and I did check it as a dual scan, color display that I believe is 640 by 480 maximum resolution. But again, for 1995, a VGA resolution only display would have been fairly low end. So anyway, we'll open this up. Take a look at the condition that this machine is in. It's not museum grade by any stretch of the imagination. There are certainly blemishes, but they're so minor that I don't know if they'll actually survive YouTube's compression. This thing is in remarkable condition. I was kind of surprised by that, and it led me to change my thinking on this machine, because I was just going to tear it apart and take the screen and use it on my 5300, but I don't think I'm going to do that, because I don't want to damage this. And the problem with these is, even though the hinges are in okay condition now, as in they're not broken, if you go to take these apart, I believe that's actually what happened with my 5300, is that it was fine, but there was an inspection that wanted to be done on the display, and as soon as you took the screws out, it just fell completely apart. So, anyway, go ahead and we'll open this up here. The hinge is kind of weird. It slides to the left. I don't even think the 5300 did, or sorry, the normal PowerBook 100s did that. I think they all slid to the right. It's kind of an odd design, but it's Apple's choice. So there you can see the display, the color display. I believe that is the speaker right there in the middle, but it could also be the microphone. There's a little LED up here that indicates when the system is in standby mode. They are a little hard to see with this camera. It does not do very well in even good lighting conditions. But there's brightness and contrast, and again, that's a dead giveaway that this is a passive matrix display, because you have both a brightness and a contrast. The microphone's actually right there, so this is in fact a speaker. I'm kind of surprised to see such a small speaker on such a modern laptop. But I don't remember if the 5300 had that as well, or if it had additional speakers, you know, underneath the palm rest and things like that. I suspect it probably does, because I believe that this does have stereo speakers. But anyway, here's the keyboard. It is worn out a little bit. You can see quite a bit of wear, especially on that E key and the home row, at least this part of the home row. The space bar as well. Trackpad's got some wear on it, you can see that. So it's a well-loved machine. And of course, power switch here. Which isn't going to do anything because that battery is dead, and I think that battery is isolated. Caps lock here. This is a French layout keyboard, if you didn't notice already. So it's slightly different than what you would get on an English machine, but it doesn't really matter for the purposes of anything, really. You just get these extra keys here, which makes this enter key rather small. I don't like this layout, but beggars can't really be choosers when it comes down to finding these machines. It's got the French layout keyboard. If I really cared that much, I could replace it. It's not, you can't buy these keyboards on eBay. So, anyway, let me go plug it in. We'll power it up and take a look at the software side of things. One more thing before we power it up. You might have noticed this PowerPC designation up here and wondered if I've been talking out of my rear end about this thing having a Motorola processor. Well, I'm not. Apple did sell these, or did sell a PowerPC upgrade for these. It was one of the selling features. I don't know if you've seen them before, but the sticker on the side that says PowerPC ready, or ready to upgrade to PowerPC, or ready for PowerPC upgrade, I don't remember exactly what it says. But there's a red sticker here. But they didn't have this indication on it, not the 190 anyway. So I'm wondering, there's basically two possibilities here. Number one, this has the PowerPC upgrade installed, and it was done by like an Apple authorized, I wouldn't say authorized reseller, what's the word? Authorized maintainer? Authorized repair facility. And they put this on there just as a matter of cosmetics. Or if this bezel has been replaced before. Maybe even the whole display's been replaced before, for all I know. And they reuse these stickers. This is kind of coming off, so kind of lends itself to the idea that this is actually off of a 5300 to start with. And it just was replaced probably because the original display fell apart. Now, when I plug this in, it's almost guaranteed that this is going to power on immediately because obviously there's no system battery and the CMOS battery is guaranteed to be dead. I should probably take it apart and remove it. But I don't remember where the DC jack is. It's right here. Let's see if I can plug this in. I think it's right here anyway. Yeah, it's right there. I thought I could do it on camera. Yeah, it's right there. There we go. Yep. It's on immediately. This, like I said, this has expanded memory. I don't know if it's got the full 40 megabytes. I don't think it does. But it will take a while to post because it's got to test all that memory. Here it is. Not sure if that's the original hard drive or not. I will need to reformat this with an English version of the Mac OS. This would have shipped, interestingly enough, this was one of the few machines that would have shipped with Mac OS 7.5.2. And that's probably actually what I'm going to run on this. I think it might be running Mac OS 8 right now as an upgrade. Perhaps. I don't actually remember. But this might just be System 7, because I think this doesn't have a system profiler, which would make it System 7, because Mac OS 8 had a system profiler on it. It's loading a fair number of things as extensions. You see the screen here. You can't really tell on this display when there's nothing on it that it's a dual scan display. But I'll go ahead and I'll open a window here. You still can't really tell. I wonder if I turn the... Are these even working? Oh yeah, they're working. You still can't really tell. You should be able to see ghosting lines going from one side of the display, basically going up in all directions from this window. And the way to tell a passive matrix display, you can't really tell on this one, because you can't really see the lines, is the lines will cut off, at least the ones going upwards, will cut off at the midway mark of the screen. That's one way to tell that you got a passive matrix display. Now, yeah, this is running 755. Not surprising. 36 megabytes of memory. Kind of an interesting amount there, which makes me wonder if this has got 4 megabytes on board. And I'm kind of questioning now whether this was originally a 190 CS. Because this might not have been. This might have been a 190. The 190 CS shipped with 8 megabytes of memory. But as far as I know, a 28 megabyte RAM expansion card, which is what it used, doesn't exist. So, I'm not sure how it ended up with 36 megabytes, unless this is a 190 motherboard with 4 megabytes. It might be kind of interesting to install macOS 8 on this, although you'd have to do it from floppy because I don't have a CD-ROM for this. I've been thinking about getting an external SCSI CD-ROM that I could use with the Macintosh. That might be kind of nice. Yeah, given this has no real, this doesn't have a, what's the word? Doesn't have a system profiler. There's not much I can really do to see whether or not this has the PowerPC board on it. Although we could do this. PowerPC processor card. And that errors out. Cannot be used on this Macintosh. So that suggests to me that it does not have the PowerPC processor in place. So the likely scenario here is that this is a PowerBook 190. Now, the differences don't really matter. The only real differences between the 190 and the 190 CS were the screen and the amount of built-in memory. All 190 CSs have 8 megabytes. The 190 could have shipped with 4. So this is probably a 190 that shipped with 4 megabytes of onboard memory. The display is off of a PowerBook 5300 CS. And somebody just happened to find the 190 CS stickers there and put them on. Maybe it was repaired by an Apple authorized reseller. I don't know. I don't have any information about this machine other than what you see here. There's not much on it in terms of data as far as I can remember. See, 160 megabytes, but it doesn't tell us how much is free, although if I open it, I'm sure it will. 160 plus 350, it's about a 500 megabyte hard drive, so that's probably the original hard drive. But it doesn't look like there's much on the machine. Just this folder here, which might actually honestly be all the stuff for this system. So there's all kinds of software on here. Makes it easy to save. I can just drag that folder off of the machine. I don't think there's anything in the system folder that's of interest. It's just the various system enablers. There's no programs or anything that are on here, although I see a Claris folder. Well, I think that's just, I think those are just extensions. Yeah, I think those are all just extensions. So, anyway, not much useful to demonstrate with this machine yet. At some point, it will get reformatted. I don't know how I'm going to transfer the data off of this, because I don't believe the PowerBook 190 supports what was called SCSI disk mode. And I don't have an HDI 30 cable anyway. I don't have an Apple serial modem. And I'm not sure what this would support as far as Ethernet cards, in terms of what would actually have a driver for the Mac OS. Because even though it is the Mac OS, you do still need drivers for hardware. Because the Macintosh obviously needs to know how to use its hardware. Now, as far as the display goes, I am correct, 640 by 480, 256 color maximum. believe it's got 1 megabyte of video memory on board. I am definitely curious whose hard drive this is. It sounds like a Toshiba to me. I think that's basically all that I've got for this system. It's definitely the speaker, because I heard the sound coming from there. Let's see if I can find the sound control panel. These are all in French, so this might be a little interesting. Well, that wasn't really what I wanted, but, oh, there we go. Yeah, it is. Hard to tell, actually. Anyway, I think I'm going to conclude the video with that. There's not much else I can think of to say about the machine itself. Stay tuned in the future, because I'll certainly be making a video when I reload the operating system on this. I think that would be fun. I'm thinking about putting macOS 8 on this. Either 8.0 or 8.1. I think it's 8.0 on floppy disk. Be kind of like installing Windows 95 from floppy, really. But I was also tempted to put that on my 520C. So I don't know. We'll see. This might just get 7.5.2 though. But for now, that is it. Thank you for watching, and if you've got any comments, feel free to leave them below. Don't your PC shut down that quickly. Don't you wish your PC shut down that quickly. And don't you wish your camera would autofocus. At least it's the end of the video.